Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 27th, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. Look at this textbook Rex block here across the west coast of North America. Ridge of high pressure over the Pacific Northwest, carving out this closed low here over California. Beautiful representation there. Much needed rainfall for Southern California. Clear, crisp morning, sunny skies here for the Pacific Northwest. But what everybody wants to know about here is, what are these snowflakes doing showing up in my smartphone app? And what is the latest on the Arctic air that's going to drop down across British Columbia? Well, we'll go over that in some detail here as we go through the morning video. Take a look at basic wave patterns. Look at this Rex block at the bottom. Classic. I mean, they drew it up for the scenario here. The ridge over the Pacific Northwest, closed low over California. You can see the difference between an omega block there and a blocking high during the summertime. Nice stuff from the National Weather Service. So very few clouds here across the Pacific Northwest. Some low clouds into the interior valleys. Okanagan River Valley is there. You can see Idaho Panhandle, some low clouds out there. But look at all the nice sunny skies. Washington, Oregon coast, Vancouver Island, very clear this morning also. And you can kind of see the lower clouds moving around a little bit there in some of the river valleys out there. So sorry if you're stuck in some of that. Actually, looks like Lake Chelan had some lower clouds this morning as well, trying to burn back a little bit. Now, taking a look at the Tempest weather stations here out across the region. If you want one of these, click on the link down below to save 10% off. It helps support the channel, and I do thank you for buying those. But taking a look at the solar radiation, look at what we've been getting the last few days. If you sit in a wind sheltered area near your house in the sunshine, you just might confuse things with summer. It's been that nice out there during some of the late morning and afternoon hours. Now, with this ridge of high pressure, we start to introduce some of this air stagnation, and we may start to build some fog in here as we go on in through tomorrow morning for some of the Puget Sound, some of the Sailor Sea as well, and some of the Strait of Juan de Fuca. But we do have a pattern change coming up here, and we're going to dive into that right after this demonstration here of the low clouds trying to spill in here to western Washington over the next couple of days, even some fog down into the Willamette Valley there as well. And then the pattern change starts on Thursday. So latest on that, let's take a look at the hot off the press is European, the 12Z run, the ridge of high pressure. Again, the classic Rex block right out of a textbook, as you saw across the west coast of North America. But here goes our polar lobe, and things are going to be changing as this drops down the west coast of British Columbia. It tries to bring out this pattern, but you want to see this set a little bit further south for the widespread disruptive snowfall for all you snow heathens out there and you snow lovers. That is not quite it, but this is going to be tantalizing close with some very cold air across British Columbia. And then this upper level low, which will be very chilly itself, will continue to spread some precipitation back up over the region. So we may have an interesting battleground here between some very cold and some moist overrunning moisture here, and how much of this colder air is going to try to leak out here, and how is this going to evolve over the next few days. Man, this is a tough forecast here because that's a lot of cold air aloft right off the coastline, chilly upper level low. There will be some lower elevation snow chances, but they look marginal right now. However, we got to watch this very closely. Now, blast from the past year, February 2019. Look at this trough move down the coastline. You can see the progressive nature of this versus what I just showed you, as our low wants to hang further off to the northwest there. So again, February 2019, if you remember that one, we had a couple rounds of some very significant snowfall for the lower elevations out west of the mountain ranges. And now if we take a look at what is coming for us, so this is the actual forecast here on this morning's European model. There goes that upper level 500 millibar trough, and you see it wants to hang out there. It is not progressive. It does not move down there, so it does not introduce a lot of the cold air that we saw in the February 2019 setup. So it differs from it in that aspect. Now, look into the artificial intelligence as well. If we scroll out the 06Z, you can kind of see the similarities between what the European this morning was showing. But again, that chilly upper level low needs to be watched very closely. And so, yeah, that's where we're at right now. And also, I want to show you the Arctic air on the move. Again, all models are in good agreement with this coming down in the interior of British Columbia. But again, a lot of this spills out. It doesn't take the proper track for that lower elevation dynamic snowfall into western Washington, western Oregon. The upper level pattern just does not favor it. You don't get that upper level support across the region. Now, taking a look at 300 millibars, about 30,000 feet up in the atmosphere, and you'll see the polar lobe and the jet stream start to push down out of the north, but it gets hung up there. This ridge starts to intrude a bit too far. You want to see more of this cross-polar flow here so it can drive down that Arctic air back into the Pacific Northwest, and you just don't see it too much, but there's still a lot of that cold air out there. So you can imagine the forecasting difficulties that meteorologists are having with this upcoming setup. Now, if we take a look here at the GFS, I want you to be very cautious when you look at this stuff. People are posting this on social media, and with the GFS, it's overdoing this stuff. You're not going to see a foot of snowfall under this scenario. I mean, it's in the realm of possibility things could change. We could get some big snowfall amounts, but when you see people sharing these maps here, you got to just throw this in the trash. This is not helpful, and yeah, we need to kind of warn people about seeing these GFS maps. I'll show you the European here in a moment. Snow depth in European, probably a much more plausible scenario. We're going to scroll through this, and you can see as we go towards this weekend, we do get the chance for some lower elevation snow. You notice it is much more spotty than what the GFS is showing, but there could be some flakes mixing down to lower elevations, even all the way down in towards the Willamette Valley here. As we get some very chilly air aloft, it's going to be southerly winds, which makes it hard to stick at the surface, but you may see some of the flakes flying in, and then some of that cold air may be trying to leak out from northern portions. So we'll just have to continue to monitor this closely, because you can see southwest BC picking up some snowfall there, and some of the areas just away from the Puget Sound, or maybe in some convergent zone activity, getting that snowfall down towards the lower elevations. So we'll be careful with that, but, disregard those GFS snow maps with widespread, heavy snowfall across the region. And now if I scroll through this is total snow to share ratio as we go all the way through the extended, and you can kind of see that it does hint at it. We're flirting with it. And again, across places to the north, we're going to be dealing with the battleground between some very cold Arctic air and this upper level low off the coastline. So if we take a look at the dew point temperature, I've been showing this the last few days. One of the defining characteristics of an Arctic air mass is the very dry air, and you can really see it get established across interior British Columbia. But if you look at across the lower elevations here, you notice Seattle doesn't even really drop below freezing except for one little blip there as we go through the following week. And yeah, you can see the southwest winds at the surface there. So it's going to be a very tricky forecast coming up, but it does need to be watched. Now, 925 millibars, about 2,500 feet off the surface. I'm scrolling all the way out here. You can see the Arctic air pushing down. There's the north winds here, but still the southerlies all the way through southwest BC as we go through the weekend. But it does turn, and we do get some of that Fraser River outflow. So we got to watch that when precipitation trying to ride back up over that cold air. And you could get some really dramatic snowfall amounts, some really nice snow across the higher terrain of the Cascades and British Columbia, and excessive amounts under this kind of scenario as well, as you've got this low pressure system spreading this moist air back up over the region with very chilly temperatures aloft. Could really bring some heavy snowfall to some of the higher terrain. And again, we are not out of the woods with lower elevation snowfall just yet. It depends on how things trend over the next few days on these model runs. And keeping in mind where that Arctic air sets up, I'll show you the pattern coming up here. Look at this low right here. I mean, there's a lot of Arctic air up into British Columbia. That could be some pretty dynamic precipitation. Again, if that's sneaking out into the lower elevations as this low creeps up here or something, then we could be talking an entirely different scenario for some locations. So we will be watching that closely over the next few days. Kind of a nightmare forecast right on the edge there. Now, 850 millibars. What you want to see here is generally temperatures aloft about -6 if you want snow to be able to reach down towards sea level, unless it's an overrunning event, for example. But you can see the very cold air, again, bottled up across British Columbia. So we really have to watch the path of this and how this upper level low evolves as we go on into the upcoming weekend here. And of course, check here first, because I'll be watching it like a hawk every single model run that comes in. Look at the National Blend of models. You can see these clear overnight lows and maybe some fog out there, but again, then we get the initial frontal systems, which will be rain as we go on in through Thursday night into Friday, but then we start to bring some of that cooler air and try to get that down in there into the region. Will that happen? We still don't know yet, honestly. And if we take a look at the experimental product, we kick that out of there here. You can see the moderate risk for some heavy snow across the higher terrain. And that's one of the beneficial things out of this setup, is that we're likely to get some very nice mountain snows out of it as we go through the first week of February. And we need it because a lot of areas are below normal here across Idaho, Montana, Washington. Oregon's still doing quite nicely, so hopefully we can still add to those totals. But anyway, yeah, we'll just continue to check back, is all we can do. We're still a few days away from this event, as the initial frontal system is not even here until Thursday night and on into Friday. So we still have, many model runs to go to continue to watch to see what this polar lobe exactly is going to do. And yeah, so check back here again tomorrow. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.